welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford, and joining me to talk about the Eternals, I have senior gaming editor at Input Mag,
Ryan Houlihan.
She's a blogger and PhD student, and sometimes does social for Slayerfest 98.
Ashley K. Smalls.
And he is from Alastair Reviews It on YouTube.
Alastair Patton.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. At the top of this, Ryan, you go first. What did you feel about the Eternals after you saw it?
Okay, here's a two-part review, and they're diametrically opposed points, okay? So number one, everyone is so dramatic. All of the reviews that were like, this is the worst thing ever. I hated seeing this. The Eternals is a flop, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm sorry. That's not true. It was a fun movie. It's not as bad as Thor 2. It's certainly not as bad as Iron Man 3, which are also fine movies. It was fine. I had a nice time. My husband, who knows nothing about Marvel, had a very nice time. It was a great way to eat pretzel bites. Part 2 of this review is it bit off way more than it can chew and was mildly offensive to me from both the sensibility standpoint and just like the topics that it wanted to bring in and get kudos for mentioning, but actually didn't delve into at all. And on the flip side of that, while it didn't engage with any of its larger themes, I don't think it engaged with any of its characters on a personal level very much either. So I would say I had a nice time. It was a lot of fun if you don't take it too seriously.
All right. Ashley, what did you think after you saw it?
Wow, Ryan said my feelings like verbatim. Just everybody act like I said it, okay? I take full credit for his comments.
I did steal it from you.
But no, that was like legit my main thing. Cause like, you know, the critics, and I follow so many of them. So I was just fully prepared for like, this is either really awful in a sense of like, I couldn't believe it would be like the cinematography was awful because given who's directing it. So I was like, oh my God, is this going to be a boring film? Cause it's almost 3 hours. I don't know. Like, you know, like I could sit through boring for maybe close to 2 hours, but 2.5 is kind of pushing it. It wasn't even boring. And it definitely was not worse than Thor: The Dark World. I am so sorry. That is still sitting at last for my spot of MCU films. But it's like, it's not in my top 10 either. It's not like, I'm not going to be over dramatic. Like this film was phenomenal, but like it was not the worst thing to ever. It does not deserve to have the worst rating out of all the MCU films. I'm going to definitely say that. But it's just also not like the super different, beautiful. I mean, it's definitely visually beautiful, but like it definitely was trying to come to this place of like, because we're doing something different than other MCU films, we're going to just be this, like the first Oscar, well, not the first, but you know, in terms of like an actual film, Oscar-winning MCU film, and it still was very much far from that. But they definitely, like Ryan was saying, they were just so goddamn dramatic. I was so prepared for something that was going to make me want to leave an hour in, and it was so far from that. They were just doing the most.
Alastair?
So again, I agree with you guys. I thought the reviews that were pouring in were pretty bad, and I was like, "There's no way it's this bad," and it wasn't. I really enjoyed the movie. My husband Zach, he really loved the movie too. I think again they bit off more than they could chew. There's too many characters where you didn't have the time for character development, even with a 3-hour movie timeline. And but I enjoyed it overall. Like I was entertained. It was 3 hours, but I didn't feel like getting up and leaving during the 3 hours. I enjoyed what I was watching. I just wish I could have had more, I guess, for them to actually give me more so that I can actually get invested into the characters. And so far, I'm not very invested. So I think.
God, I text Alastair because Zach and I co-host the Horror Podcast My Bloody Judy together, and I was like, if I don't like this movie, Zach is going to hate it. I was incorrect. Zach loved it. Liked it. I am going to be the bad guy here. I think this movie was so fucking boring. I genuinely was like, can I take a nap? Like, I thought it was the most boring MCU movie I've ever watched.
Have you seen her movies before, though? Like, have you seen Chow's previous work?
Can you name one? Because I don't know that I could.
Like Nomadland?
No, I have not.
I went in expecting to be like, why is this a superhero movie? This is so boring. And because my expectations were that it was going to be incredibly boring, every time superhero stuff happened, I was like, I'm having a lot of fun at the movies.
I mean, I agree with what everyone said about, like, it was just, it's so weird that for a 3-hour movie, we still didn't have enough time. And it really felt like we didn't have enough time for these characters. I would have cut this cast in half. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of spoilers here for everyone listening, but I think you're all used to that by now. Like, at the very end, when I think it's Angelina Jolie, Druid, and I forget who else are, like, searching, and they encounter Harry Styles, but they explicitly say there are a lot more of us out there. I was like, then why couldn't they have cut this cast in half? If we're saying there are more of us, then, like, okay, give us 4 Eternals or 5 for this movie. Save the rest for later. Because, yeah, I felt like it was just so crowded, and even the action scenes to me just, they felt a little, so I remember in Age of Ultron, a movie that, like, wasn't my fave, but, like, I didn't hate it, it isn't my fave. That opening action scene felt so, like, easy, and that's how I felt with a lot of these action scenes and the flashbacks. It was like everything just felt easy. And I say this full offense, but also love and light. This felt like a DC movie, not like a Marvel movie. Because, ooh boy, Circe and Icarus took themselves so seriously, and they were so boring.
Okay, oh my God, thank you. Okay, I was just gonna say, just Circe, as I know technically it's supposed to be an ensemble, but, like, Circe's technically the main character. Like, she's a very boring main character, and I'm just so happy because I understand. And this is no shade to Gimma-chan, because first of all, she's also in Captain Marvel, and her character in that, though she's an antagonist, is fucking awesome. This character was very boring. She looks like she wants to cry every 3 seconds. And
everything is said in the same tone.
Okay. And it's just like, you know, even in terms of her love for humanity, we really don't get to see that. Like, we see these flashback scenes where she's helping out people in fucking 500 AD, whatever the hell it is. And, you know, that's about the most we get with her with humanity. But beyond that, we get the 5 minutes of her in her classroom. So it's like, I say that to say, you know, and this is really on par with what everyone's saying about, like, it's weird we didn't have enough time. Like, I both didn't feel like there was enough in terms of her relationship with Icarus specifically. Like, I don't feel like they were in love. Like, I was told they were in love, so I went with it, but I didn't feel it. And even with her love for humanity, I didn't feel that. But I was told she just has this amazing love for this earth. So I'm like, all right, well, save us, sis. So, you know, it's like, but I didn't feel that. And I hate a movie that has to tell me what's going on, because that means something's wrong if I can't pick up on it myself by watching these events unfold.
It felt like you went to Epcot with a bunch of friends who do not like Disney World, and you walked from like world to world, like from country to country, and didn't ride any rides. And by the end of it, I was like, what was the point of shooting on location if we weren't going to touch anything there? Or, like, there was no, like, there was just no engaging with the worlds that they built. However, I liked the action sequences, you know, like, I think that there was some funny, I mean, they gave them, I mean, it was the normal Marvel, like, quippy style of humor, but there were some, like, funny parts, and I definitely think some characters had more richness than others, and that really came down to actors doing the work rather than the director or the writer doing the work. But to me, it just felt like a lot of a waste. And I think the reason that it felt like such a waste, and it got so highlighted in my mind that this was wasteful from a storytelling perspective, is that they seem to have stacked all the diversity stuff that they get criticized for into one movie. Or even not just diversity, just, like, things that they get criticized for, like, no, there's never a sex scene. They were like, fine, we'll give you a sex scene. Fine, we'll give you a gay person. Fine, that gay person will have a gay kiss, so nobody can get mad. And they have a kid, and they're and the gay person is heavy and black, and it just kept, like, felt like they were like, a woman of color will direct it, and a woman of color will star in it, and they just kept going and going and going. And because they packed all that in, they didn't do justice to any of it, which in some ways is worse, because then it gets bad reviews and everyone's like, well, we're never doing that again.
I did feel when I left, I was like, God fucking damn it. I wanted to love the movie that these stupid incels hated just for being diverse. Like, I'm mad that I don't, like, I wanted it to be one of my favorites because of that. Like, I don't want to, like, be like, yeah, I didn't love it when, like, people are, like, review bombing it just for being diverse like that. I don't want to not like that. You know what I mean? Like, I want to root for that movie. And, like, I still am, but I just,
was this worth giving Kumail Nanjiani body dysmorphia?
And he wasn't even shirtless.
Yes, which was very
We didn't
weird.
even see his new body.
Yeah, and his character also doesn't depend on strength, so it was just really, really weird because it was like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I guess maybe he just wanted to, look the part of what he
Right.
felt a superhero is supposed to look like. But it's like, you could have been as skinny as me and still be able to blast stuff. You got the powers. You just
He's just as handsome as he was before. It's just now, I guess, I mean, allegedly, this is all off the record and alleged. Now he's got a lifetime of shooting testosterone in his ass. Like,
Ryan.
I don't know that was worth it for this movie.
But it's weird. So a thing that, so I asked Ashley before we recorded, because I know, Ashley, you're a pretty big nerd like I am. And I know you are too, Ryan. The Eternals, I skim reread the Neil Gaiman trade this afternoon. And one of my biggest issues was when I started reading the Avengers, I read X-Men first, and it was a while before I branched out. And when I first read the Avengers, Circe and Jon Snow's character, Dane Whitman, were like main Avengers. And Circe, I always have a soft spot for the two of them, just because like they were part of, like, it was like when the Avengers, Justice, all of the like big teams have done like a kind of B-list team at one point, and I feel like that was big in the 90s. Like it was like Captain America, Black Widow, and then a bunch of B-listers, and that's what the team was. And I loved it. And Circe was a like Emma Frost, Cordelia Chase type super powerful badass. And for me, that 100% very easily would fit into the MCU, having your star be a woman like that.
There's a huge hole in the MCU for a woman like that. We have 90 versions of a man version of that, and no woman who is ever allowed to be a little narcissistic and
unless she's a villain and dies.
Yes.
So I kept thinking about that. So it was like, oh, this is going to be cool, because like you said, Ashley, I did think she was good in Captain Marvel as like, a bad guy who didn't get much time, but she was still like cool. I was expecting like, yeah, she's definitely going to kill this. Like they're going to make her be so sassy. And instead they turn her into like this like meat character who, like you said, like looks like she's going to cry. And her and Icarus had no chemistry.
At all.
And
that's we get a freaking sex scene between two characters who I mean, right. I'm pretty sure y'all had them have sex, because otherwise I wouldn't be convinced they touch each other. So, I mean...
They had no chemistry at all. I think Gilgamesh and Cena had so much more chemistry. I was so much more into like their kind of relationship dynamic. And I had just finished watching Girl Interrupted again. And then I was watching this, and then she was all being crazy. And it was... I don't know. I really liked Cena and Gilgamesh.
I wish we had gotten to see them be either romantic or sensual at all, and rather than like this caretaker relationship, because it read in the text was very like, I'm taking care of you as a big brother, but it read so romantic and sexual on the screen, and maybe that's just down to like, I mean, you have Angelina Jolie and Don Lee. I mean, they're both very charismatic actors, let's say.
Right.
I mean, I was just gonna say that all the side couples felt more couple than the main character, than the main one we're supposed to be focusing on. Because even Makari and Druid, with their little shoulder touches and looking over at each other, I got more chemistry from those 3 moments, maybe tops, than of the 20 minutes of them trying to force us to believe that this. That there's something really dynamic between Icarus and Circe. I just did not at all. And there's another thing about Makari, but we'll get into that later.
Kingo and the valet had better chemistry.
Yep.
I
was like, kiss.
Yeah. I really would have loved if it was like, oh, Kingo isn't aging, but like this like kind of older guy is like the love of his life, but like he doesn't age. So yeah, that makes sense that like this guy does age because he's human.
That would have been great, actually.
Right? They were... Also, I really don't understand why Kingo wasn't there for the final battle.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's gonna come in, and then he didn't. And I was like, I wonder. And then like I just started Big Mouth season 1, and in the first episode, Kumail Nanjiani plays like a cartoon version of himself that's like all super jacked, and he has like a very silly, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like like Instagram or YouTube like videos that he does about like being a man, and they're like very silly. And I was like, did he just like want to do this instead for the final battle? Like, is he like, I want to go voice like this like ridiculous character who talks about cum a lot on Big Mouth rather than be in the final battle. Yeah, I don't. I also have like it's going to be an annoying like Twitter type hot take. I felt like everyone felt queer in the movie, and I'm not normally someone who's like, oh, like I do like a queer reading of the characters. I'm like, well, they said they're straight. Because like you said, Makari and Druid, who one, I will say, yeah, Richard Madden's hot, but the guy that played Druid, like when he was in that leather jacket, whew, did it for me. But like, of course, I like the angsty guy with like the bangs. But like the two of them and like even Athena and
you're not gonna
Gilgamesh.
convince me that Ajax is not a lesbian. You're not gonna convince me that Sprite isn't non-binary. You're just not gonna do it.
I felt like, and I guess maybe it was because like you said, there's like a shoulder touch, or like Athena and Gilgamesh, it, like you said, Ryan, it was like they're dynamic, but like they didn't kiss. So I was like, it just feels like a caretaker, or like two queer people that like love each other but aren't attracted to each other is like the vibe
Magician's
I got from,
tea.
yes, is the vibe I got from like all of the characters. I just kept being like, is everyone gay? Because they all read as like queer chosen family friends or something. Like that's what the love felt like to me.
Well, they're also all 7,000 years old, and I feel like after 7,000 years, you might
suck a dick. Like,
yeah, you might change yourself. You might decide, hey, I want to live my life, as a different gender for, a couple hundred years too, and then just switch back. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I just don't feel like they came to Earth to be under the same heteronormative policies that we've inflicted on ourselves. But I just don't think they. The rest of the world was doing what it does with this bigotry, and they were like, yeah, well, let us know if y'all see any monsters come out of the ground, because y'all are, and in a way, even though it's in reference to technology, I mean, they do reference how far back and how long humanity takes with things, and I don't see, they do see themselves as above us, both literally and metaphorically, in a sense of, our mindset as well. And that's why we're given a plow, thousands of years before we can ever even touch anything that can be powered.
But at the same time, it feels like these people have not been alive for 7,000 years because they don't know anything. And like, they're like fighting over stuff that they should have maybe discussed at some point during 7,000 years, or like even moral concepts that you think that they would have some kind of shorthand for discussing, or, thousands of years of common experiences of like, listen, bitch, remember that time? And, like they never came up. It just didn't feel lived in. It felt like 7,000 years of like, I'm going to do my day-to-day routine, got to go to the market, like not thinking too much. And I just don't believe that. A lot of these characters felt like they would have picked up practical skills, And so only Kingo seemed like he accumulated something, and that was just wealth.
And they all look exactly the same throughout history. Like I would have expected different hairstyles. Yeah. I would have expected like different like ways of like holding themselves. Like it just looks like they came out of the 21st century, 7,000 years ago.
I mean, they're talking about genocide before like the word was invented. Like back then it was just going to the new world and being awful. Like there wasn't a word, there wasn't a concept for wiping out an entire culture. People just didn't know what that was. And they did, which is fine because they're aliens, but then they went on to tell us that they had no memories before they came here. So what would be their point of reference for a genocide? It just felt not thought through. But again, it doesn't mean, to me, it doesn't mean the movie's horrible. It just means maybe don't have your one gay character take responsibility for Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yes, I didn't love that. I mean, at least we saw that he was upset, but like, ugh.
It felt like if you're gonna talk about this, give it the time and the respect that it deserves, especially for these characters that clearly have different cultural, historical, racial, disability, sexual identities, backgrounds, experiences. You would think that, I don't know, that the discussions would be more nuanced or in depth. And it made me, it felt like a waste. And that's probably the worst feeling coming out of a movie, is that they wasted all the resources they had on it, right? Like, But at the same time, again, I had fun while watching it. It was just post thinking about it that I was like, this doesn't really hold together.
Yeah. So, okay. So I figure what we'll do is we'll break down, because there's just so much to talk about. Let's break down, like, we'll do like characters / trios. We'll do Circe and Icarus first, because they were the most boring, but like clearly two very hot people, that I just think, like you said, Ashley, they needed to show us a sex scene to be like, oh, they do touch each other. Like, it just...
It looked like someone mashing action figures together. Or like when you're a teenager and you kiss and then you grind on each other and then you're like, oh, and then you go away. Like that was the sexuality level. And again, after 7,000 years, catch me doing fucking backflips during sex. Like,
especially if I'm fucking somebody who can fly.
Right?
100%.
Oh, they should have done that.
What are we on
Such a missed opportunity.
Like, please. But I just it was, and this is, I guess it goes also back to like that whole waist thing, but then it also is like the unnecessariness of certain stuff. It's like, you're going to give me the first sex scene and it's going to be between two characters who have no chemistry. It's like, at this point, just tell me that they like each other and move on to something that would be more, I don't know, useful, more something, because this is just a waste of my time. And then it's also like, you have two Game of Thrones characters in this thing. I've seen both of their butts. It's like,
yeah.
And now you have to, like, you can only show me, Madden's pecs. It's like, it's just such a waste. It's like, show me at very least, if not move on to something else, it's like that moment could have been used to drive in the romance in a much better way. To be honest, the sex scene seemed lazy to get them through as a couple. Because it wasn't coming through any other way. The whole him staring at her while she like gets her hair done and she works with humans. I'm not getting a he's in love with her vibe. I'm getting a stalker vibe. He doesn't trust her or something. And, you let her go for more than 2 seconds. I'm not getting it. I'm just not doing it. Like, even in the end scene where, we're supposed to get this sense of like, he's not going to kill her because he's in love with her type of thing. So he lets her do the, save the world. If it wasn't, you can tell, and I know they picked up on the lack of romance because you can tell from his eyes where he's battling with himself that they're trying to drive home the point. Because if you're not telling me, I'm not feeling anything. And I hate to bring up my favorite MCU film, but it's like in Winter Soldier when Bucky's beating the shit out of Steve.
I knew you were going to do that.
And even though he doesn't have any collection of who Steve is, something snaps in him when he's beating the brakes off of him and realizes that, this is my, depending on what side you are, lover, friend, whatever. But whatever's going on, we don't need a flashback scene to them from the first movie to remember that they have a relationship. You see it. It clicks. You feel that chemistry, and like, he can't bring himself to kill his best friend. And so it's like, I didn't feel that in this scene, and that's what's supposed to be the purpose. But these are supposed to be two people who are immensely in love with each other. And it's like
spanning billion, like so many years.
Okay.
And
like Steve spends how many years with the Avengers, and the minute he finds out that Bucky is alive, he's like, oh, I will kill each and every one of you for him. I don't give a shit about our friendship. Tony, you thought we were best friends.
Like, I never got fucked like that. I will fucking die for that
dick.
You
the shit bet. I don't give a shit. You all can go down. I don't give a fuck. Like, did you not see them jump Iron Man? Hello? Like, he made it so clear without even having to say a thing. It was very clear. Like, I will kill everyone in this bitch and me and Bucky will get a drink. Get out of my way. Okay? So it's like, you can't, it's just that chemistry did not exist in this film when it came down to those two characters. And they were absolutely boring. Very two pretty people. And I don't know how you don't have the sexual chemistry, but it certainly just was not there.
Yeah. Alastair, I know that Ashley was speaking your language with the Bucky and Cap talk. I got to know what you felt about their relationship.
Yes, I'm a huge Stucky fan. And I think that a lot of that is on, some of it is the script, some of it is the directing, and some of it's on the actors. And I think at the end of the day, the actors really didn't have that chemistry. Yeah. And I can see how they're like framing the screen with him coming up behind her and grabbing her hand. They're not even filming their faces as they're doing this. They're trying to like make everything, the sun is setting. They're trying to create like an ambiance for them to be together. Yeah. And that just tells me that it was probably pretty hard on set for them to get chemistry out of those two actors. And sometimes actors don't have chemistry. And I'm wondering who's at fault for that, if it's the casting or if it's anything else that was going on. And sometimes you have actors that just hate each other and they have like the best kind of chemistry, and everybody,
That's true.
like it's weird. It's like how do you fit your people together? But singularly, I mean, they were still boring. Cersei,
yeah, like you were like, but alone, still boring.
Cersei was very likable. I really wanted to like Cersei the entire time, but she kept on stepping back, and I wanted her to step forward.
Yes.
And Icarus, I liked his stony demeanor, except for when it came to romance, and he did give me kind of, I don't know, like evil Superman vibes. And I liked kind of when he went ape shit on everyone at the end, and everybody was like doing battle with him. I really like that. That's basically what I had to say about them.
I will say I was waiting for one of you because I know, and Ryan, you also watched Invincible, right?
Yes.
So I like Ashley and Alastair. I know you two did too. I kept getting Omni-Man vibes from him like immediately, and I kept thinking like, am I just projecting because I really love Invincible, or because like Icarus in the comics, that is not his story. He is like the hero of the Eternals. But yeah, like when he kept staring at her, it really just felt like stalker vibes, not like, oh, I love you vibes. So I kept, even when they're like in the house and like planning stuff, and like he just is like scrunching his jaw, his beautiful jawline.
Jawcerciser.
God. I was like, I never realized how hot that man was, because I like, in my mind, it's just like, oh, he looks like generic attractive celebrity white guy number 5. But oh boy, that jawline is great. But I kept thinking he reminded me of Omni-Man because he didn't seem so. It seemed like he was just doing what Cersei wanted, and then in the end, that was the case. But I was like, they did trick me where I was like, oh no, I'm definitely wrong. And then I was like, oh, now they're fighting him.
They also did a lot, like, in the writing to be, like, him being like, I'm not Superman. I'm not this. I'm not, like,
Right.
people projecting. And it was very, like, Homelander from The Boys. Like, very, like, in his rejection of it, like, his bristling sort of at the, at those projections on him. I felt like it tipped the hand a little bit that he was going to be way more fucked up than we were imagining at the beginning.
To be honest, I, like, originally thought he might, like, I knew something was up because of the trailer, and I was like, either they gave Salma Hayek's lines all for the trailer, or something is missing, because in the trailer she literally tells him we have 7 days, but we hadn't seen that when we find out her character has died. So I was like, something's up. But originally I thought, is he really maybe a coward? Like, did a deviant come out of nowhere and like they were supposed to fight it? He couldn't kill it, and it killed Selma's character, but it ended up being that he was completely I don't want to say completely evil, like evil in a sense of like, hey, don't kill my planet, but like in the sense of I love characters like that where it's like he's been told what to do and he thinks that what he's been told to do is right. It's not as simple as like,
right,
you know, I want to do bad things.
It's like in 7,000 years he still hasn't developed a personality.
Yeah.
Yep. And instead just is still taking rules. You've been on that world for 7,000 years and you've had the same haircut the entire time. Mm-hmm. Like, come on.
Listen, as someone who still dresses like the Hot Topic teen they were, I will say I relate to that. I only changed my hair because of a pandemic.
7,000 years from now, catch Ian at the mall, re-gauging his ear even larger.
I mean, but you do bring an interesting point that as they're going from, place to place and everyone has, Cersei's become a professor and, Phastos has started his family and Kingo has become a movie star who just changes his hair every basically like 50 years to keep doing the role. Everyone's done this thing to fall in love with some form of humanity. And then there's, Icarus sitting in his house just waiting for the go ahead to blow the planet up. So it's like, yeah, you are, and I think that might even have to do with why I wasn't able to fall for the romance factor, because we really didn't get a different side of him in the relationship aspect that we were supposed to make us convinced that, he would, I truly was like, he's going to still kill this woman. Cause I'm like, all she's done is let you fuck once. I don't know. Just like, it's just like,
they touched one time and that's it.
I mean, they're going to wipe your memories when this is all over. You might get a second chance. Cause I'm like, there's nothing from this relationship aspect that made me feel like he would want to hold on to it. Nothing was given.
Yeah.
So I was just very much confused. But
well, also couldn't they have said like, we never make it work? Like I wipe your mind, and every time we go through this or whatever, and I would be like, oh wow, I buy that. There isn't any chemistry there, and he's trying to force this relationship, and he keeps resetting her mind. That is really the abuse cycle that they're in, and it is definitely exploitative, and it would explain a lot of the lack of chemistry, and it would explain a lot of the like strange behavior and his stagnation. But they didn't do that, and they didn't explore that. So again, it's like, why bring this stuff up if you're not going to go into it?
It is. And it's like, sorry, I just something just sparked. It's like, he didn't even, from the sense of want to hold on to the planet so he could remember her. Or, that wasn't even enough to bring out this emotion of conflict where he wants to go ahead with the plan, but then he realizes he'll forget her. Like, none of that. None of it at all. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, two things I wanted to mention on that topic. One, I can't believe they fuck in the sand, because I would not be fucking in the sand.
Also, she has the power to turn anything into anything, and you're just going to get sand in your crotch.
Right? I was like, no, at least go to the rocks. Like, ugh, I don't want sand all over me. Two, in the Neil Gaiman comic, The Eternals, that I was reading today, I was like, this is what I thought the plot was going to be. But like, let's be real. I've read so many comics that I often forget, and I forgot. Like, I was like, oh, maybe I forgot the plot of it. But no, the plot of the Neil Gaiman Eternals is like, they are collecting themselves however many years later, and their memories have all been erased. And Circe encounters Iron Man when like a big whatever is happening, and he recognizes her as a former Avenger, and she's like, what are you talking about? I'm not a former Avenger, because their minds have all been wiped in whatever present day. And that would have made more sense if their minds had been wiped.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I felt like that would have maybe made the plot make a little bit more sense, right? If they had been existing with their minds wiped, and like, say that scene where Circe goes to like the bus is flipping over and she accidentally turns it into the flowers or whatever, and is like, holy shit, what happened? That would have, I think, worked better, right?
Instead, we have Druid in the Amazon as an Irishman, enslaving an entire native population for centuries, and we never engage with that again. We just know that that's something that happened. Oopsie doopsie.
And they like, they like slapped his wrist about it and then moved on.
And I mean, I'm just very confused, because I'm like, y'all were wherever you were in the world, knowing that Druid is someplace with these people under his control, and no one thought to say, hey, we should let those people live their lives, because like
plus the geography did not make sense, because he said, here, this is the last jungle y'all left me in, but they were in Tenochtitlan, which is in central Mexico, and the Amazon is in South America. So I was like, I don't understand.
That's the Disney understanding of the planet.
Like, no,
it's all in the Mexico pavilion.
It's like, it's not all Mexico down there. Like,
Alastair, I love when you flex your Mexican roots.
Well, I noticed that, like, he just said that, and I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. Like, at all. But
yeah. So let's move on to, we'll do Druid and Makari. I did like Makari. I thought it was wild that she didn't come back in the movie till like, what, like in the present day? She wasn't in it till what, the last like 30, 40 minutes?
Yep.
They gave her basically nothing to do except like be a deaf person on screen, which if to me feels worse than not including a deaf. I mean, I'm glad a deaf actor got paid, but it feels kind of worse to just be like, because you're deaf, you have basically nothing to weigh in on here. We'll give you a couple lines where you say something that might have been profound in another film, but we don't dwell on it long enough to let it create any cohesive character or relationships.
I was very much frustrated, because we're, as they're going from place to place and seeing the Eternals and what they've been up to, this one has a family, this one has created slaves, this one is protecting his friend. But it's like you telling me that Makari just, chilled in the ship till y'all just came and got her? I mean, I want to believe that that's not the case, but it was just definitely very lazy. I'm like, this is so many ways to utilize her, and it was just like, yeah, but then that would actually take work, so let's just wait until we're getting closer to the action scenes.
And then you gave her the power to like perceive even vibrations in the air and be anywhere she wants in the world at any time. And rather than be like, oh, she knows where everyone is because she could just, one day wake up and be like, I'm going to check on them, and I'll observe from the outside what's going on and just keep notes on what everybody's doing. That would have made sense for that character and given her some sort of like, and then she could have said like, I'm sick of watching, you know what I mean? Like, just because, I have a different way of communicating doesn't mean that I don't have something to say. And that would have been extremely relevant. And it felt like, again, a waste of bringing the character into the movie. Like, save it for the next one. That would have been fine.
I agree, Ryan. I think it was a definite like waste of potential right there, especially with her being able to like almost be the connector between all the characters. It was a waste of opportunity. But I will say when they did come in and I saw her just reading books, there's books all around her. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my heaven. Just really is around me. Reading all the time. I was like, I get it.
So yeah, and like Druid, this could possibly be projecting, but like really read as like an angsty queer to me, like the entire time. And in the comics, I think he's like a little bit more of the villain. I will, hands up, I didn't finish rereading the Neil Gaiman Eternals graphic novel, but he is like kind of the villain.
Yeah, he is.
And I did appreciate that the movie, I mean, granted, they didn't do much with it, but like shows that he is definitely not like the A+ hero of the rest of them. Like, he's not like, he's, willing to enslave these people, quote unquote, for like the greater good and to like whatever. And so we at least made it like, oh yeah, this guy's a problem.
I mean, shouldn't it have been apparent to them at some point in the thousands of years that like my power is mind control? That's definitely not from a good source. You know what I mean? Like,
plus they look super creepy when they're mind controlled, like with their dark eyes.
I did like that. It did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, whatever. Okay, so let's move on to Kingo and Karan. We'll throw him in there because I did really like. I thought Kumail was like such a great like addition to this cast.
If he wasn't there, I don't know what this movie would have been, because ultimately I think what we're saying, because we've been complaining a lot about the problems of the movie. I felt the whole time watching it, we're gonna get somewhere with all this, and I'm having fun on the way, and then we didn't get anywhere, and that was the problem. But I probably wouldn't have felt like I was having fun going somewhere if it wasn't for his character.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I loved that he was vlogging the entire time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also, I was kind of scared they were just going to make him comic relief, but his power being honestly, a pretty powerful one without him having to be, the super strong one. Like, you can definitely get the sense of the Celestials made a bunch of defensive Eternals and then offensive ones to kind of help. And he's one of the defensive ones. And while he may not feel like he can take on Icarus, he definitely has one of the better chances. And I love that, his personality doesn't solely focus on his, power. Mm-hmm. But the fact that like, as charismatic as he is, and he's vlogging and he's the star, it's like, oh, but I can absolutely take down a deviant on my own too. And that made me really excited, because we do know how Marvel likes to make a comic release of the characters of color, and that's all.
Yes.
And it was cool because he had like almost Goku or anime like chi balls, that he would conjure to do his things, or he would just like do shooters and stuff like that. And I think that's in some ways his storyline makes the most sense, because like you're there for so much time. It makes sense that you'd want to like kind of leave a legacy, and it makes sense that you'd want to accumulate some sort of like wealth to be able to make the own changes that you want on the planet. So like I liked all that, and everybody else, like I don't know, everybody else didn't feel as fulfilled as he did. He was happy. He was truly happy.
Yeah, like he was good. They didn't need to get it.
Yeah.
It did feel a little bit like they built up this whole storytelling background for Sprite, where it's like, you will keep the keeper of the legends and teach them of their future ability, and then Kingo is like, and I'm going to be the one to make movies. And like, it felt like maybe they could have tied that together somehow, but then they didn't. But having said that, I think his character made the most sense and was the most human, and that was a consequence of the fact that, like you just said, Marvel tends to just make people of color into comic relief. As much as that's horrible, it did work to the character's advantage in this particular film.
Yeah, because I also felt like Karan, while he was kind of the comic relief, I really liked the moment, like, you know, and I'm a grumpy fucking atheist, but I liked the moment when he was leading the prayer for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought that was actually like a very nice moment. And we didn't make a big deal that they didn't have to like make a big deal that it was like this Middle Eastern man who's also a human. He's not even part of their group, but like, yeah, sure, he can lead the prayer. Like, I thought that was like a nice thing. And also, like, I don't know, I like when you have like foreign, like relatives that maybe like don't speak, like English isn't their first language or whatever, I feel like there can not always, but sometimes be like, this is my awkward like aunt being weird, carrying the camera everywhere, like putting it in your face, not understanding the boundaries. And I thought they did a good job of that without making like a mockery of him. Like they were like him and Kingo's, like the fact that Kingo even brought him along said a lot. Like I thought it was going to be, oh, we get this guy who says a funny thing and then he's gone.
Yeah.
But I was appreciated that Kingo was like, no, he's coming with me. Like, don't smash his camera.
Yeah.
Like he is with me. And like Kingo did respect him. And even I forget which battle it is when Kingo, like after he had yelled at him, he's like, oh my God, you get that on camera? And he's like, sir, I did. Like, I thought that was like really great.
It's funny because it's like, even though Cersei's supposed to be this person with this love of humanity, I honestly feel it came out more through Kingo, which is what made it so weird when he decided to leave, because he somehow still believes in the mission or whatever, or you know, he believes in the Celestials or whatever. But it's just like, he definitely showed to me the most love for humanity than anyone. You know, I think, you know, Fastos, his love for humanity is more so directly tied to his own family.
Yes.
But I do feel like Kingo really has this, you know, I mean, you make movies for humanity for up teen years, and you get to learn, they basically meet every generation of people through those movies. You know, he, not only with his relationship specifically that was happening, you know, he brought him along, but even when he leaves the set, he has this concern for, but, you know, we just started filming and they depend on me to take care of their families. And it's like, that tied more into someone who wants to protect people on this earth than, and it just was so weird that he would abandon them in that final fight.
It was weird. And it was weird when he had that moment with Icarus where he's like, you know, I'll always go where you lead. But I felt like I didn't get where he was coming from. You know, it almost seemed like there was supposed to be history or like an extra scene where he always followed like Icarus and Icarus's lead. And that just didn't happen.
Yeah. Again, like he definitely was one of those characters they let the actor do his thing, right? Like they kind of are like, yeah, just do your Kumail shtick. And I think it did work. Which is weird because I do think he definitely falls into the more typical MCU character, right? Because he's like a little shitty, is funny, isn't taking it too seriously. But like in this movie, we needed a little bit more of that, I thought.
Yeah, and he was also Marvel loves a power fantasy, and he was like the one person in the group who was like, I'm going to use all this to my advantage. And so it was fun because that's what Marvel is good at portraying. So it was he was the most polished character-wise. And obviously Kumail is so charming that it like can override a lot of problems.
Right.
But it sucks that like, for perfect example, Don Lee is Gilgamesh, which I know we're not getting to yet, but he's another person who like the level of charm and charisma helped carry that character over the finish line, but it only highlights how charmless Gemma Chan was in this movie. I mean,
I like that we're all not happy about having to, like, we're all like, oh yeah,
because we all like Gemma Chan. We like Richard Madden.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm done. Hey, I do like her. I mean, I may not be the devout fan, but I'm also just, look, there are two very pretty people. I was very much on board for, you know, two pretty people just being, you know, just fucking, just I was all for that, like, you know, more of that. And I was just so disappointed. I was like, I don't understand how you failed the assignment. They did half of it by just looking the way they do. You just had to get it to the finish line, and somehow, some way,
like you're already a step ahead because you're both so hot.
Okay.
And then Okay, let's talk about Gilgamesh and Cena. I will say I liked both of them. It is wild to me that Angelina Jolie, because she is such a presence, was like such a side character. Because Athena is one of the main Eternals. Like it's like her, Icarus, and Circe that I think of when I think of the Eternals. And I'm wondering, I kept thinking like maybe it's because she's so famous that they're like, yes, her and Salma Hayek will be in this movie. They will not get all of the lines, but like let's put very famous people in this movie as like a draw, and so we can use them later if need be.
I think she still stole every scene for me at least.
Yes, 100%. She is a movie star, capital M, capital S, in the way that almost no one else in this film is.
Yeah. Like her facial expression, like she didn't have to say anything in a scene. You would get everything from her face, and that was amazing. And I felt like they actively depowered her, you know, by doing the mind. I forget what it's called, but the mind
weary.
The mind weary. I felt like they actively depowered her, you know, just to make her not as big of a competitor for like Icarus and stuff like that.
I mean, but even her small fight with Icarus, and like when she only gets like 2 lines, and he's like, "You don't have to fight me, Athena." Athena's like, "But I always wanted to." It's like that was one. There was more chemistry in those 2 lines between the two of them. Than all the
if they had given her that attitude, the whole movie might have crackled with an energy that it did not.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, because I do feel like they tried to make her more muted, but like you said, Ryan, because she is a capital M movie star, you can't mute Angelina Jolie.
I mean,
you just can't.
It was, I mean, even the scenes where she's like covering her face and in the background, I was like, well, could we just like see what's going on over there?
It's like, pan there real quick.
Honestly, I feel like, you know what, maybe we should have, because clearly she was trying to tell them some stuff and they weren't listening.
Right.
She was drawing pictures. And honestly, it also just made sense why she kept attacking other Eternals a bit. I mean, yes, because confusion, but also because she's used to them being the ones want to see I shouldn't say want to see their worlds destroyed, but they're the ones doing it. So all she knows, even though she hasn't connected the dots, is they're going to be responsible for this. Stop them. And so like now it's all making sense. But like as Ryan said earlier, her little bit of roles always stood out, always understood the assignment, even if it was just having to have the face of someone who was confused, completely delivered. Even when it came down to the weapons that she can create, they dialed it back, because she's supposed to be able to do a lot more than that. And it was always sword or shield. And she is supposed to be a much bigger competitor. But
like she's like Wonder Woman, right? Like that's basically. I was
gonna say, if we don't get a Wonder Woman style movie where they just, all right, fine, she was sad in that movie, we got her on some Zoloft for this one, and we're gonna give you the Marvel version of Wonder Woman starring Angelina motherfucking Jolie. If we don't get that, again, the level of waste and decadence at the Disney Corporation.
I was really surprised. I mean, shouldn't say surprised, but I was also disappointed, because another thing that I've always linked with the Eternals and why, I kind of saw it coming with after Thanos being the big villain, is because Thanos is her cousin. So they didn't do anything with that at all. And,
that was a thing I was wondering, because when we get our Harry Styles cameo and he says he's the brother of Thanos, they like know who Thanos is. And I was like, are we supposed to, is like the way they're rewriting this is that Thanos, is he an Eternal? Because he isn't in the
He's
comics,
supposed to have, but like there was this whole thing about why he came out the way that he did. But yeah, he's supposed to have some sort of blood relation, whatever, to them.
But he's not like an Eternal, right?
I wouldn't call him that, but there's just I noticed a big ass connection. But if it doesn't have them in spandex, then it kind of goes out my head after a certain amount of years. But I know I wouldn't refer to him as an Eternal, but I know whatever went into creating them, it has some involvement with him on some level.
Wait, actually, I think one of the trades, so I have 2, I think the other one I have has a chart. Does it have a chart?
As a family tree.
And I remember
the Marvel family tree.
I know that Harry Styles' character is his brother, and I know that Athena is his cousin. Those are 2 things I definitely know.
That's what we know.
Oh, he's okay. There we go. Eternal deviant. He's an eternal deviant warlord from the Moon Titan.
Oh, that makes sense for like how he looks. And then Thena, I liked her interactions with each character. It seemed like very like specific to each character, and I loved her interaction with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and knifing the orange. I like that one.
I also like. I think if they do this again, she would make sense more to be in the leader role.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you said, Ryan, put her on some Zoloft. We're good. We got rid of the weariness or whatever, and like just like let her be, because she's Angelina Jolie and she's commanding no matter what. But like she was really good in this role, and I felt like, I mean, I guess this is kind of the problem they encountered with Wanda in the earlier movies, right? It's like you can't just have her beat everyone constantly. There's gotta be like, you gotta have her knocked out, because otherwise everyone's done in 2 seconds, because it's fucking Scarlet
It's why
Witch.
at the beginning of every Metroid game, like, Samus loses all her powers, because, like, what would you do?
I mean, I will also... sorry, you keep going.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, another thing is just that, and I hate to go back, because I kind of skipped over it with Makari, but since the scene also happens to do with Thena, in that both when Thena loses Gilgamesh and she's like, I'm gonna kill that specific deviant. I don't know if it's gonna solve our problems here, but whatever the hell happens, I'm killing him before anything else. The rest of the world can be destroyed, but he's dying at my hands, type of thing. And that sort of, like that feeling of like, whether you think their relationship was platonic or romantic, that love is very much personified in her in her, her desire there. And in the same breath, when Makari thinks that Icarus killed Druid, she loses her mind. She completely, he doesn't even get a hit in. He doesn't get to get up. She is absolutely wailing on him, and like that emotion from the two of them as well. Like, and these are two characters that really don't get that many moments to shine as they should have. But those two moments of like, we're just not two women who are to be messed with. And it just completely draws out not just the power, but the emotion that comes out of it, because so far, so much of the main characters have been, in my opinion, emotionless. And so to see that kind of like switch from these two characters, from these relationships that haven't been as defined, it was like, that was just a whole other component. But her taking, and then, of course, like when he's trying to trick her, Thena specifically, because, she's confused as to if it's really him and if it's not. And then she comes back to herself to kill him, because of his last words to her as well. Like that emotion right there, like if I walked away from anything else with it, like that carried most of the film than what the main plot line was.
Yeah, I actually, the deaths of the characters never really hit me. It was more the reactions the other characters had that like hit me. I think.
But they also kept saying, I mean, on the topic of the deaths, they kept saying, we were never really alive, we're robots, etc., etc. And part of me was like, okay, well then fix them. Are they dead then? Then I'm not clear on like, if they were never alive, they can't die, then, and is this unfixable? Because it feels like Fastus could have, I don't know, done some surgery. I kept thinking, oh, well, they're not dead. Like, they'll be back. Like, they're not just going to be dead. And then they burned their bodies and spread the ashes. And I was like, well, now they definitely are.
I kept on thinking, well, they have a bunch of like spare androids somewhere. So I feel like they could explain like Ajax coming back for some reason.
And all their memories were in the ship, right? Like, so,
right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about Salma Hayek's Ajax. And this is just me, but like, I don't know if you have this, Alastair, like when there's like, I feel like I'm like very I get like a motherly feel from her all the time, but just because of like, that's how the Hispanic women are in my family, like very like, I think of like that scene where I forget what outfit she's wearing and her boobs look ridiculous. In like, she's wearing like an open blazer with a button up that's like a little bit down. And I can always remember my mom like being like, that's how we dress, Ian. Like when I as a kid, I would always be like, Mom, your boobs are kind of out. So I always get like a motherly feel from a Hispanic woman who isn't afraid of that shit. And I really liked Salma Hayek in this. I found her death like weirdly brutal compared to the rest.
Yeah.
It definitely was, and I think that I was most shocked by them killing her off so early, because I was like, you have Salma Hayek, and you're just gonna kill her off. And I'm glad that she got kind of scenes throughout the movie, so she wasn't like completely gone. But it just felt like a waste for me. But at the same time, like it felt like a waste, especially since we didn't have an emotional connection to her besides the fact that she's Salma Hayek.
Right.
Well, I would say that was a case of them knowing how to perhaps it was a waste, obviously, but I do think that it was a case of them knowing, all right, well, we have this smaller role that needs to have a lot of presence in a short amount of time. We need to find a capital M, capital S movie star, because otherwise it won't work. And I think that she did what she could with the role, and I definitely think she shined in it. But it also, like you said, it felt a little... It's the first movie directed by a woman of color, starring a woman of color, and then a woman of color is just like brutally ripped apart or whatever. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this one.
Like, I didn't love Richard Madden just like watching her get like ripped apart and like her dead body thrown across the ice. I was like, oh, I don't feel good about this. Like,
I mean, also, what I don't know, we don't have. I'm trying to think of Latino superheroes in the MCU.
Yeah. I always think of Tracy Jordan on 30 Rock being like, why aren't there any Puerto Ricans in Star Trek?
I'm just saying, and you gave that representation for them and then you ripped it from them within 30 minutes of the film. For the most diverse film of the MCU, that wasn't a good thing to do, but okay.
I mean, right, I guess that's the problem you encounter when you're making it like the most diverse, but you're also killing a lot of the characters. It's like, ooh, well,
it's why you should maybe be diverse from the beginning, so that when Captain Marvel comes out, everything that women have ever resented, everything that every woman has ever represented does not need to fall on the shoulders of this one young blonde white woman. Mm-hmm. And maybe if you had been diverse from the beginning, or had rolled out multiple like characters with some kind of Latin background across the franchise, it wouldn't feel so weird when you ripped her to fucking shreds.
God. But yeah, no, I did think she was, I mean, like you said, Ryan, she is also a movie star. She was good. It was like, I did think she might come back somehow, because I don't know why, but when the trailers were out, I thought Angelina Jolie was going to be the bit part, just because she wasn't as represented in a lot of the like promos, and we kept getting that one scene of her eyes turning white while she's like holding a sword. Mm-hmm. I thought she was going to be the like capital M movie star who ends up dying and is like the catalyst for X, Y, and Z happening.
It's also kind of like Drew Barrymore in Scream, where you're like, right, at this point in your career, I don't buy that you spent that much time on set, but apparently she did, so good for her.
I was wondering that. I was like, I wonder how many people were like, I'm too famous and I don't care how many millions you throw at me. You only have me for this time.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I have to get back to my vacation.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need your $5 bajillion. God, who else? Who else? Is it? Oh, Sprite? We can talk about Sprite. I thought Sprite was kind of one of the weaker links, maybe the weakest.
Yes, like I definitely felt for her, like her not being able to grow up. I think that's horrible. It's completely horrible, especially her having very adult feelings while being in a juvenile body. I think
right, like if you have the kid feelings, it's like, all right.
It's very hard to. I think the director did a good job of like treading that, and it could have been like very bad done.
Right, yes.
And I thought it was like okay done. And I mean that's basically it. Like I didn't get so much of a feeling about it. I know she created illusions, and I think they could have done more with that. She even made that illusion of her and Ajax, dancing in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I felt like that could have been a more emotional punch than it was, and for some reason I just didn't feel it.
I thought when Sprite left with Icarus at the end and was like, I'm going with you, I thought we were going to get a reverse where everyone's like, well, she loves him, so that she's on his side. But really what she was doing was going to be creating illusions so that he was busy thinking he was fighting or doing something that he wasn't doing. And that she was going to buy them time and have some kind of redemption in the end. And no, they didn't do that.
Instead, she stabbed Cersei.
Yeah, she did a full like Game of Thrones, like, all it took was one, and now I'm good. No.
I also, but that was another thing about like if Kingo hadn't told us that she had feelings for Icarus, I would not have known. I would never pick up on
And
it.
he's like, don't you all notice? Duh. And it's like, no, I don't fucking know.
No, I don't fucking know shit. What the hell are you talking about? They didn't give us nothing. They didn't show anything in like, they didn't show anything from the past to maybe, show that like, when the rest of the world is treating her like a kid, he does. I was really expecting that. We didn't get shit. I'm like, did you just like him because he's attractive? I mean, I'll give it to you because same, but like,
I get it.
But they just did not.
But without the emotional component, it's even more it's even more uncomfortable because then it's like, well, I guess you're just sexually, you're a kid. Like, you can't be like, wow, it's a crush. Like, we all have crushes at that early, like, tween age. And I totally understand how she could be enraptured in this person that treats her with respect. But no, she was just like, ooh, you're hot. And it's like, don't have kids saying that.
I mean, but it's like they just did not show it to us. I just really hate any movie where I have to be told what's going on because you're not doing a good job of showing me. And it's like, you have Kingo having to drive that point home because you cannot. I mean, I guess I sort of understand why they can't show it, but it's like they didn't even take, like the sort of. Not that I want them
longing.
to, like that sort of juvenile crush when like someone older is just really nice to someone who's younger. So naturally, they're maybe looking at them in a different way that they're not supposed to. And I'm like, it's a difficult position because I don't want to infantilize her because she is supposed to be, a grown ass woman, not just grown, but 7,000 years old. But like,
not just
like, I get it, but it's still like they didn't even take it from he's the only person who treats her a certain way. Because even in the scene when Gilgamesh, jokes about, I gave you, the alcohol-free drink too, Sprite, and everyone's laughing a bit at her. It's not even like Icarus is the one who's like, don't treat her that way, don't do that, don't.
Also, why do that? Like, she lives forever.
Yeah.
She's gonna be fine.
I would have thrown that glass against the wall and been like, there better be fucking alcohol.
Okay, I would have fucking created an illusion. Now you guys don't know if you're fucking eating food or drinking poison. Have fun.
Enjoy my shit.
Exactly.
I thought of that Ryan and Alastair, that Anya line where she's like, I'm 7,000 years old, just give me a freaking beer. Like,
Oh yes. It was definitely like that. And almost like even going back to Invincible, what Monster Girl?
Oh yeah.
Who has kind of like similar
Totally.
thing where she's younger than she actually is. And I'm like, it's a terrible. I think they they wanted to make this kind of like an Oscar contending like movie. I think they had a lot of meat there in that storyline that they didn't chase. I'm kind of sad that they didn't.
So now we should get to, is Faustos the only one left? I think so. Right?
Yes.
Okay, because I will say, thought he was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
No, I loved him. The scene, and this is like, I feel like it's so cheesy, and of course Ian had a lot of feelings, but like where we get to see him just exist as a gay man, and like you said, Ryan, he's like heavy, he's black, he's not just like I feel like in like a stupider, it would have been Richard Madden, who like, the like jacked white guy with abs that would be the gay
I didn't know
character.
going in, and I was shocked to find out that Richard Madden wasn't the first gay representation.
Right,
because he is gay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hands up. Not confirmed. But I that's like who they normally cast, right? Especially if it's like sci-fi or superhero. Like that's normally what we get. And I love the fact that he was also anxious as fuck, because I relate. Like him being a helicopter parent, that's how I am with my nephew. Like when me and my nephew are out, I make him hold my hand and he's always like, I don't want to hold your hand. I'm like, too bad you have to, because I get nervous. And like I just loved, like, he felt like a gay character written by a gay person, not a gay character written by a straight person, which, Alastair, is what your husband said when we covered Halloween Kills. He felt the gay couple felt like they were written by straight people. And I could see that. And this felt, at least to me, like a gay character written by a gay person.
Yeah,
So-
it felt like a gay character's backstory written by a gay person, and then a gay person. I don't know. I actually don't know if how the actor identifies, but a gay person sort of interpreting it. But I do think it felt edited by Disney. Very, like, I could feel the
Where
things they weren't saying. Like, I love my family and my spouse and husband. You're like, all right, that's a weird way to say it, but okay.
It's definitely within like a heteronormative like they definitely wanted to plant it like that. I will say I did like the gay couple in Halloween Kills, even though my husband didn't. But I liked that we saw him. I didn't think that we were going to get as much of the gayness that we did in this movie. I was very happy that we did. And I will say that when they kissed, I was in a full theater, which is great for watching a big movie like this. But the people behind me were like, ugh, why this? And my husband did a clear Exorcist twist just to like look at them, and it was like it was a moment. It was a moment because it was the first time like an MCU movie had done something so blatant.
Yeah,
they always
I'm not
try the right
joking,
people.
though.
They don't ever do that with me. And I always wish they would because I would love to make a scene. Because you mean to tell me you just watched that bland ass sex scene 40 minutes ago and didn't say a thing, but this right here is what you want to look at? Did you not see? Like, they just showed us two tops fucking humping each other, and this is what you cause a scene about. They always pick the right people. I mean, and not even saying like the right people, because it's not, but it's like, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm very much notorious for causing a scene. Oh, I would have turned that place up. Oh my God, I would have just told everyone, don't worry about it. Your movie tickets are on me, but this is about to be the new show because I am about to create one. Welcome to your movie.
Well, the thing is, they had more chemistry in that one kiss than they had in the scene.
Everything.
Yes.
Even going back to what you were saying about editing, because even in the scene where his husband comes out and he picks up on, you have to do this. What are you talking about? You're not going to go out and save the world. We want to see him grow up, right? Well, that means you have to do this. And I could tell, first of all, Brian Tyree Henry, who plays Phastos, he never misses the assignment. He has never been given.
He's so good.
Okay. He also plays the father in Into the Spider-Verse. You would swear like he just decided to fucking morph into an animated character and deliver. But I could tell there was probably more chemistry. I mean, I know I keep bringing up the lack of chemistry in the main characters, but like you could tell they needed to edit the chemistry that was probably there in that short scene to not have it be too romantic.
Right.
And it definitely gave me a sense. And it also, back to even the humanity part, this is someone who's also gives up on humanity at some point, even though it's for awful fucking reasons that I don't really want to get too much into, because then I'm just going to get into a tirade against Disney. But he gives up, and it makes sense that the person who basically creates technology would give up. They didn't need to use Hiroshima. Like,
they did.
Like,
they really did.
We really did.
That was a lot
okay?
to invoke. That was a lot to pull up.
Yeah.
The man who created technology, seeing humans use it to just do awful things, you did not need to use this exclusive event for that. We've done that. We've done that last week. You didn't have to do that.
Should have put him at the introduction of the iPhone.
Okay,
That would have been
exactly. But that being said, him being drawn back to humanity because of his own life that he's built within the thousands of years, that was another thing of like, okay, this I am convinced, even though it's maybe for more selfish purposes, that's fine, because like him finding that and realizing all the other people out there who have that and don't want to lose it is enough without having to do too much. And I actually believed it when he left and went off to help, given the fucked up circumstances that they put him in.
Yeah, because he did it for his family at the end of the day, and like I was super analyzing every single scene with him and his husband to see if it could be edited out of the movie.
Yeah,
and it definitely could be. It definitely could be. Everything could have been edited out and still been like, okay, we just don't get this in-depth stuff. I definitely think they will for the, China release.
I was thinking that they'll probably just cut out that backstory and just have him be there.
I was going to say, and this is probably, I'm so glad this is being recorded. I've seen every Marvel movie, almost every Marvel movie in theaters, and actually did see every single one in one marathon go.
Oh, yes,
story
you did.
of that is also available in Slayer Fest. However, I dropped my phone and missed the first gay kiss on the screen because I leaned over to pick up my phone. That's how quick it happened. And my husband was like, how? And I was like, I don't know. And I was so mad. So I have still not seen anything gay.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry.
I cried when they kissed. I'm not gonna lie. I cried. I was like, this is such a big deal. Like, I was like immediately emotional because I was just like, man, I've been reading comics for like my entire life. And like North Star was such a big deal for me, even though he was like,
Must have been such a good moment for you, Ian.
And like, it was like he was like C-list at best, especially in the 90s. Like, he came out, then Alpha Flight was canceled, and then we didn't really see him again. And like, I just like, I was like, man, I love this. And like, I cried. It was good. I liked it, and I cannot believe you dropped your fucking phone. Right?
Yeah,
Jesus,
that's
Christ.
what I did. Fucking infuriating.
But yes, I did think, oh, they'll definitely just cut them walking up to his house and cut after the kiss, and then just like, he will be there, and that's how they'll do it. So I guess we should talk about well, let's talk about the two cut scenes, the credit scenes we got. We get Harry Styles, which was it spoiled for everyone? It was spoiled for me, like when that first
fucking blog headlines.
It was spoiled, but I still loved it.
I liked it. I thought
my husband had no idea, and I got to watch someone like be surprised, and he was like, "What is that? What is happening?" Like, he's a pop music person, so he was just like freaking out, and I was like, "Oh, well, this would have been nice if I had that moment."
Right? Because I was just waiting for it because I knew what was happening.
Harry Styles keeps glowing up. It's crazy. Yeah. It's actually crazy.
All I need him to do is come out and suck a dick or something, and then I can be fully on board. Right now, I'm like, come on, just one.
Just one. Yeah,
I'm
kidding. I thought he was good. Ashley, what did you think?
Definitely. It was spoiled for me because I follow too many Marvel fans. And so I completely knew, but that was the start of me muting everything Eternals related. I told my friends, I have to mute Harry Styles. I'm so sorry. Because I have two friends who are really big fans of his. And I was like, I have to mute all of this or I'm gonna know this entire movie before I go to the theater. I mean, I was also really happy to finally see Pip the Troll, who's another big character who we've been waiting for, especially with the Guardians and things like that. So I'm really, I'm seeing him also thought about just how different this phase is. Like before, MCU took a bunch of no names or people who just were doing B-list movies and turned them into household names. And you don't even get me wrong, we had our A-listers here, but for the most part, the people, carrying the films were people restarting their careers or people who really didn't get their lead shot. And now, I mean, this big ass poster of Chris Evans looking at me will tell you what has happened. And then, now, with the Salma Hayeks and the Angelina Jolies and now Harry Styles, who we know is going to be coming in. And then, even knowing like a Mahershala Ali, who, not to jump the gun to the second, but yeah, so we'll get there. But, knowing who's going to be now in these next sets of films, it's like, damn, how is MCU going to get them to, I mean, well, I guess, Kevin has already kind of let us know he's not doing the same thing with the stars as he was before, where they are going to be carrying so much. Cause I'm like, I just can't believe Harry Styles is going to be able to give that type of time commitment, being the level of a pop star that he is, but he has a really big role. So it's like, I am just stunned as to how he's going to make this work, or the MCU is going to be able to make this work with him specifically.
I think we've changed a little bit, though. Like, we see less of the stars being trotted out to every press junket and every live event and every, we see less of it just maybe in a post-COVID sense. But also, I mean, Brie Larson was a perfect example of, like, they just got her in a room and they were like, all right, we're going to shoot like 90 different things and sprinkle them out throughout the movies. And I think they're coming up with solutions to those problems. I'm interested to see if I'll be able to notice that the production is being treated differently. But if the press cycle at least lets up, because they're such big stars, they don't need to do as much press, that might create an opening for people to have opportunities to do roles that might necessarily, they've been disqualified for in the past.
Yeah,
I don't want to. I'm very excited about Harry Styles. I think he's an artiste.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I think he's great. However, as much as I know she's a good actress, let's not put Ariana Grande in the Marvel Cinematic Universe just yet. Like, I don't want to get a little too. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. Where it's like SZA versus Ariana Grande in the new.
Right. Yeah.
Although SZA as Storm.
You just put it out there. I'm gonna knock on wood for you. But I really loved it, though. I thought that the CGI for Patton Oswalt's character was kind of subpar for what I was expecting.
I will say, I forgot to mention this. Some of the CGI in this movie, for me, I could see it. Like, I could see the edges, and his was one of them. I don't know, which is weird, right? Because, like, Rocket looks great and all that. Like, I don't think Rocket Raccoon ever looks super CGI. He looks great, and Groot looks great, but I did think Pip as a clear CGI character looked like a CGI character.
It looked like a character that's still in process for another movie, like how the Sonic the Hedgehog we saw in the trailer was not the one we got. I felt like it was like, V1, and we'll do a couple shots, we'll not a ton of screen time, and we'll put him in the shadows.
To be fair, remember our first introduction to Thanos was a post-credit scene, and what we saw that first time was vastly different from what we got. So I do think that that'll be the case here.
They'll just revise it for the Disney Plus release.
Because I thought him, and then the scene when the Deviant is lifting up Salma Hayek, those were the two scenes that felt a little like, ooh, we need a little more time on these scenes. Like, just looked a little too CGI.
I thought the Deviants in general were a little slippery looking, like a little sleek. I was like, this is a little Transformers early films for me.
Yes.
But that said, other parts of the effects I thought were unbelievable. There was a lot of stuff being done with the backgrounds and with set pieces that I was like, this is indistinguishable. This is lovely.
Yeah. Also, before we get to the second, I got to point out, I saw Bill Skarsgård's name in the credits, and I was like, who the fuck was he in this movie? I had no idea he was even in the movie, because I think that man is gorgeous, but of course I do. He's tall, looks like he could be a murderer. But do we all know that he played that one deviant that had the talking lines?
I did find that out because that's what it was. Because I too saw his
found
name.
that out because he always plays those roles where it's like a horrifying creature, and I'm like, just let him be in the movie as himself.
Yeah,
but that character was like CG. I just was trying to imagine when they needed him on set, because that character was just like a CGI goop. I don't know, right?
Yeah, no,
he could have just done the line read.
Yeah, because I just assumed, because I was like, okay, he's had such a big name that they do have to make sure his name is seen before the rest of the credits. But I saw his name and was like, hold up. Now I know he's notorious for putting on some makeup and trying to hide and some shit, but I think I would have picked, because I'm basically in love with the entire Skarsgård family. They just all are very much attractive people. But yeah, I didn't. I was very much taken aback, and I was like, he had to voice something. And then went and Googled it, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. Of course he would take on a scary role. He doesn't believe in anything normal. So
yeah, that's true.
The first of probably many, if we're being honest. MCU is getting more comfortable with reusing actors, and I think hopefully he's so talented. I hope that they find other uses for him.
Yeah. So let's talk about the final, the post-credit scene. I didn't know that we would get this in this movie. I wasn't expecting Dane Whitman to kind of step up.
I was like, why is he here if we're not going to get anything? And it ends up just for this final scene that they hire Kit Harington.
I'm going to be honest. I was a little upset, because he was a big reason I was going to see the Eternals, because I felt like they had hidden him in the trailer. So I was like, oh, they don't want us to know. He's going to just come out, and he's going to, I just knew it was coming. And I'm like, once the film was wrapping up, I was like, all right, he's definitely just going to be a post-credit scene. And I was like, God, thank you for introducing us to him, but damn, you didn't have him do anything. No wonder why, all his press was like, I ain't got no powers. I'm like, I'd be mad too.
Well, I thought for a movie that was all about how humanity was worth saving and all this stuff, I thought, okay, well, we've got a hero here who has no powers. Maybe he'll Wonder Woman in, but the opposite. He'll come in and his humanity will be nope. Nope. He's just dating.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure who I thought that's who the voice was. It was funny. The group of people behind me were like, that's Wesley Snipes. And I was like, this is not Wesley Snipes, but I think it's Mahershala Ali, but I wasn't sure. And then I saw that Close On officially said it was
I saw a tweet that it was Jennifer Coolidge.
Stop.
And I like that idea.
You ready for that, big boy?
It did feel a little bit, and I guess maybe this is my, like, we've all heard these complaints a million times that people like be like, oh, all the Marvel movies just set up for the next movie. But this one, like, especially the end, I didn't realize till I read a negative review that the Celestial captured them. I thought it was just like, you will be up for review, and then sent them back to Earth. I didn't realize it, like, left with Circe
I
and
got
King
that.
O.
It took me a second, but then I was like, oh, they're not coming back.
No.
Well, I got that, especially when the boyfriend was like, hey, she's gone. And everybody's like, where did they take him? And then I was like, okay, yeah.
I really...
But I could see how it didn't read, because it didn't register for me until like 30 seconds after that. I was like, oh, no one's coming back. Okay.
And it happened so fast.
Yeah.
And I get that they were trying to go for the Jack Kirby-ness of it all, but when they have them zoom into the air, it did not look great.
Oh, my husband did not understand that was a different Celestial. He was very confused. He was like, well, I thought they beat it. And I was like, no, that's different. And he was like, oh, well, I don't like that. I was like, oh, okay.
All right, well, I guess we're here at the end. Alastair, what was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene was Angelina Jolie as Athena against that big deviant in the cave.
All right. Yeah, I did like that scene. Ryan?
Oh, wow. My favorite scene. That's tough. I would say Angelina Jolie as Athena when she was spreading the ashes. I thought that was beautiful and touching, and perhaps just because I've been through a couple deaths in my family recently and bringing it down. I thought it was very touching, and I kept thinking, God, someone is doing so much acting and they're giving her no time.
Ashley?
Definitely Makari beating the shit out of Icarus after she thinks he's killed Druid, and everyone's like 2 seconds into having a big monologue, and she said, no talk. She just starts wailing. She's like, no, none of that. And she just starts wailing on him. He doesn't get a second moment. Hell, he has to freaking thank the deviant. He damn near saved him.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely think, even though she definitely deserved a lot more screen time and a lot more moments, that she gave us a lot of emotion in that scene than others, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, my favorite scene was Faustus and his like home life, and seeing first like gay kiss and gay people getting to exist in the Marvel universe. Like, that all made me so emotional. It again just made me think, like, this should have been a Disney Plus series, and each character should have gotten their own full 45-minute episode, and then we could have got that end, and it didn't matter if, they didn't have a lot of speaking lines in the end, because we already got like a full 40-minute story, and that would have, I think, worked.
And we could have had the fun, like, you son of a bitch, I'm in, at the end of every episode.
Yes.
But I also, before I forget, I should have said, tied with my Angelina Jolie spreading the ashes was the Bollywood number. That was lovely.
Yeah, that was really good too. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for listening. If you like SlayerFest 98, you can find us on social media at SlayerFestX98. You can find us on iTunes, or you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and a bunch of other places you get your podcasts. You can support us on Patreon, where you can listen to our Harley Quinn and Firefly coverage. I'm covering some stuff with my mother, who has big opinions about everything and is 75. Any support is much appreciated. If you want to follow me, I am at ENX Carlos on all social media. Alastair, where can everyone find you?
I'm at Alastair J Patton on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And I'm Alastair Reviews It on YouTube.
Ashley, where can everyone find you?
You can follow me, Ashley K. Smalls, on Twitter and TikTok, which is where I make most of my content. And my blog, Brooklyn Blurred, will be back up and running in about a month. So feel free to check that too.
Nice. And Ryan, where can everyone find you?
I'm at Ryan Houlihan on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find the Tomorrow podcast with me and my co-host Joshua Topolsky in anywhere you found this podcast, and you could hear my unhinged communist ranting.
All right, everyone. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.